And we're live. Welcome to the show. This is West Coast Swing or West Coast Live. Hopefully we don't get flagged for the theme song. I'm with Forrest Hansen, of course, and special guest today, Christopher Dumont. Thank you guys for being here. And I have to kill that song before we get flagged.
Yeah, before we get the takedown complaint the way we did last time.
Oh, it's awesome. I can't believe that Facebook actually shuts your stream down.
Yeah, they're serious about that stuff. They're not playing around.
I know. It's the... okay. Where did you post that thing? I just killed everything on my page. That's cool.
Which thing are you talking about?
There we go. Okay, so those of you that are joining us, like I said, Christopher Vaughn is our very special guest today, and today it's a loose outline of what we'll be talking about is making it as a champion dancer, judging swing, and whatever else we were wandering into, which are Forrest's words, and I love them. And we were actually talking right before this, before we went live with Chris about kind of how it worked for him. So, Chris, would you mind kind of starting there, and you'll be repeating yourself to us, but
yeah,
I thought it was amazing.
No, for sure. No, so we were talking about sort of how I made that leap from All-Star to Champs, and the main turning point was at Monterey. Gosh, I can't remember what year it was, but it doesn't matter. And I made the final, and it was an All-Star Champ, so all the All-Stars and all the Champs danced in the same division, and I ended up drawing, very luckily, the most wonderful Sarah Van Drake.
Yeah.
And she made us win because
like you're like, I was there.
I was there. I was involved, but really it was just like I was like, all right, don't screw this up, and that's sort of how I was able to make that leap. But the other big thing was John. He rewarded champion points versus all-star points in that combined division. Oh, so wow. I don't know if the rules have changed per se, because I know that they're very particular now. Mm-hmm. But as far as that time, that's how I was able to then, at like City of Angels, the rule was you had to have a champion point in order to get in, blah, blah, blah. So like it sort of spiraled into now I can at least dance prelims in champs regularly. So yeah, that was the main underlying thing.
And then of course, like you have to have the skills and the ability to be successful in that format. You know, you're competing against other champions dancers. You've kind of broken the glass ceiling, but you still need to make the final with consistency, which now you're doing, which is great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's not like, okay, yay, I made a final once. Now I'm set.
Now it's over.
Yeah.
See, you still gotta... I would take that as a set for life for me, but whatever. No big deal. We all have our own goals.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's events where I still don't make finals. Like sure. It's just how it is.
Yeah,
it's always a battle, and I think that that's something that some people sort of like. Oh yeah, they're all going to make finals, and then you're like, they didn't make finals.
Yeah. Like there's just, everybody has the expectations of who like. This will be fun. Do you ever do that still? Do you like look at a field and be like, well, he's in, he's got it, she's in, any of that?
Like count seats basically.
Yeah.
Where you're like, there are 10 seats. I know 8 of them are taken, so I'm battling for 2.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of people who do that. Or do you do that, or do you approach it differently?
I don't do that, but when say people ask me about it, on my opinion, then I will give it. Then I'll start counting. But as far as like, I sort of just look at the field as a whole, and I'm like, wow, we had to have 2 heats, and they're very large heats.
Yeah.
I know where my seat is if I make it, and I know where my seat is if I don't.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. So, but yeah, I don't really ever try and think that, because then it's like, oh, I'm never gonna be at their level. It's sort of like already just precursor of like, I'll never be at that like seat level. I will always be a leftover seat.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's a great way to. I was talking to somebody else, like I don't know if they would want me to share their name or not, so I'll avoid it. But I was talking to kind of like a rising champion, probably the best way to say it recently. And what they said is they were like, I feel like I'm making it with consistency right now, but I'm still battling to establish myself as somebody who kind of owns a seat, which is basically what you were talking about, right? So I'm establishing myself as somebody who has one of those seats, and somebody else is coming for mine, if it kind of makes sense. And I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
So kind of just following up on that a little bit. Part of what you were able to do is you were able to kind of like establish yourself as a routine dancer, just as much as you were establishing yourself as like a social dancer and a Jack and Jill dancer. Do you think that being successful in that routine format gave you the cachet to like more successfully gun for one of those champion seats? And either way, do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing? Do you have like an opinion on that?
Yeah, no, yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good way to put it. It don't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. And the thing is what was it? Oh, that was something. So I actually just recently, well, it'll segue, I promise. But I was reading some of the rules to be able to dance into a champs division, champs Jack and Jill division. And one of the things is if you place first in classic or showcase, you get to dance in a Jack and Jill.
That's so weird.
And they're two completely different skill sets.
Yeah.
Completely. And I find it very interesting that if you win a routine division, say you are all-stars, and you win the classic routine division at a NASD event, you then qualify for a NASD champions Jack and Jill to dance in the prelim. So that's a big issue. But like, that reminded me. But anyways, going back, my ADD self. As far as doing the routines, it definitely gives you a little bit more of a spotlight. Like as far as the community is concerned, because like people watch routines, same as like they do for like a champ spotlight. Like they watch routines and they watch, Rising Star, because like back when I was doing the junior routines, there wasn't a Rising Star yet. And so they were sort of looking at who's going to be next, like who's the up and coming, who's going to be the next, like, greatest of all time. Jordan Todd. Yeah, exactly.
And juniors was definitely at the time kind of the place for that. I mean, it still is to a degree, I would say.
Yeah.
But
I don't even look at this might piss some people off, but I don't usually look at Rising Star as like who's next. I personally look at Rising Star as like these are hobbyists at this point who really want to show their stuff. Not a question of quality necessarily, but
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas like juniors, like you're sort of being indoctrinated in the whole thing, and maybe it's because I had guys like you, Chris, and like Tori, and that sort of group of folk who would destroy in those competitions, and then on top of that, Jack and Jills and Strickleys and whatever else. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. And I already got an angry face. That's good, great.
Hey, I like angry faces. The angry face is the official face of the West Coast Live show.
That sucks because
that's what we do
it
here.
Still makes me clench every time.
I know. I
see.
That's why I do it, Andrew, because I'm just trying to trigger you here.
Trigger me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to trigger you with those angry faces.
Oh man.
No, I mean I think you're actually making a great point there, Andrew. Where like I don't. And I would love your thought on this, Chris. Like, I don't look at Rising Star at this point as like who's going to necessarily be the next great routine couple. Like for me, Rising Star, the whole point of it is that it's like an amateur division, right? That's the point. It's an amateur routine division. We don't really talk in terms of that language in West Coast Swing. We talk in that way more in like ballroom and things like that. And I love that people are spamming the angry faces. By the way, keep it up. Good job.
Just keep doing it.
Good work, team. Go team.
My sphincters. thanks you.
Anyway,
Give me coal. I'll make it diamond.
and like for me, in terms of like that, who's going to be the next big thing in routines? I definitely look more to juniors and more to kind of the people who are breaking into classic and showcase and seeing how they're doing and seeing if somebody comes out there and just really does something cool and interesting and different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like I would say on sort of kind of like the whole amateur routine thing. I would say if we have it to like say you didn't have the platform and you didn't start this dance at a junior level. Like you weren't a kid when you started. Like say you were in 20s, mid-20s or whatever, and you want to get into routines. I think Rising Star is a great starting point. Yeah. Like if you want to make this a professional career, like shout out to some good friends of mine, but like Austin and Callie, like they want to make this a career. This is what they want to do. But what they did is they're like, you know what, to get our routine experience, we're going to go through Rising Star, do that, and then now they're dancing in Showcase.
Totally.
So
they're doing well.
And they're doing really good. So it's just kind of like they took the routine experience that a Rising Star platform can give you to then transition to try and make it a little bit more serious. Totally. So I think that's another, but it's still that amateur division. Like you don't have experience yet. So that's where you're going to get the experience to then possibly transition. Yeah.
Totally. It's the I want to do a routine, but I don't necessarily want to compete against Chris and Tara or, insert names here. Yeah. So it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I'm, by the way, I'm really grateful that we have it. I think that it's one of the best things that's, just in my opinion, like in terms of, we've done a lot of talking on this show in the past about like how do we keep people interested when they hit like the all-star level. And that's a little bit what we're talking about here with you, Chris, is like how do you go from feeling like you're going nowhere to feeling like you're going somewhere. And I think that Rising Star is one of the best things that's come along so far in terms of like keeping people motivated around that. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and speaking of motivation, that sort of thing, it's nice to hear that there's actually a couple, because I'm not on the national circuit. Like I'm mostly local, regional. It's nice to hear that there's a couple who specifically wanted to be professionals at this dance and went through the steps to do that and didn't just assume that now that they've been dancing for X amount of time, they can go and be at that pro level. They should be getting this respect. You know what I mean? Like they used Rising Star in order to be more established. Yeah, because it's an issue. For me, it's an issue for the past 10, 20 years of just the assumption that you're a professional, that you can take on that title right off the bat. Like, do you remember when you made that transition from I'm doing this for funsies or a challenge versus now I am a pro, I'm getting paid? Or was it just like, now I'm getting money, so I guess I'm a pro?
It's a long road.
Sure.
For sure. Especially from juniors. Because the difficulty there is when you are a junior, and when Nicole and I were in juniors, we got a gig in Germany, and it was amazing. It was one of the greatest things ever. But even she's been doing this since she was basically could walk. That big. And then I came on a little later, but it's you're still looked at as a kid, like from adults, and it's finding that balance while you're teaching and to say like, hey, no, I have experience that you don't know, and I'm trying to give it to you. And being taken seriously as a younger person in this community. Totally. And that was one of the biggest transitions, was having that happen, where we have to be like, okay, we're teaching, we are wanting to do this, just listen, please. we promise that we're not just some dumb kid that doesn't know what we're doing. Like obviously we're in pretty good hands too.
I remember.
So it's kind of like a. Go ahead.
No, please. Mine was an anecdote. Yours is probably poignant.
Well, no, let's do the anecdote first, then, and then I'll ask the question.
I just remember. I remember the very first time I saw you do a spotlighted competition, Chris. I don't remember the competition, the actual event, because they're all the same. But I remember you walking out, and I had this aversion to, I still kind of do, to young dancers, like to children who were badass dancers, and I was just like, let's fucking see what this kid could do. All right, and it was just, I had no right to say anything, and then you went out and bent your arm behind your back, did this crazy turn thing, and it was all on time. And I was like,
Christy Mon classic.
it's like, oh, it's all right. I'll shut up and listen. This is cool. And
Yeah.
and the thing about your dancing for me is like every time, like being a jerk on my part aside, is every time I've seen you, you do like I always think like, okay, he's gonna go into this, and then you always do something different. You're always trying stuff. You're always have like you always what's the word? You skew my expectations. Like, what do you? I guess I'll ask it in a minute. Forrest, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. So what I was going to ask is kind of connected. Sorry, I got distracted by the arm behind the back part. Anyways, what I was going to ask before was connected to what Andrew said. Like, when did you kind of start considering yourself a pro? When did you start considering yourself? And like for me, all right, aside, I kind of hate how we titled divisions in West Coast Swing.
Oh yeah,
because I feel so self-conscious whenever anyone's like, he's an all-star dancer. I'm like, am I really? You know what I mean? Like, it's such a pretentious title inherently. So and like obviously
later we need to talk about what the hell you would want everything named.
I don't know if I have a better alternative. I just know that I don't love what it is.
I
right
want
now.
Japanese anime ranking system.
Oh yes.
S rank.
Oh, S
champion.
plus tier.
S plus
Yeah, no.
plus.
The last Hokage. Anyways, so jokes aside, when did you start like kind of considering yourself a quote unquote champion dancer? Like, what was the thing that had to happen for you to feel comfortable with that label?
When I had the champions that were sitting there, and honestly, like I never really felt like a champion until maybe the past year or so. So like even though I've been dancing champs for I think like 4 or 5 years or something.
I was gonna say something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Like
really, that's it.
More, yeah.
What? Okay.
It's
well,
funny, like, West Coast is like dog years, man. Like 1 year passes in West Coast, and you're like, that guy's been in champs forever.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? It's sort of a different thing.
Yeah, and so like it was when I like, you know, like Kyle or Sean or like whoever would come up and be like, dude, I love what you did. Keep doing it. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But it was like legitimately like genuine. It's not like, you know, the cordial thing of like, it's like, hi, how are you? It was more like, this is genuinely how I feel. And I think you're doing great stuff. And it's like, you're doing the thing. And to have people that you sort of started and looked up to, and having that sort of come back to you is like, oh, I think I've actually established myself here.
Yeah.
So that's when I would be comfortable with saying like, yes, I am a champion dancer because people who are there. So it's kind of like Sarah's whole thing of like, you aren't the shit until the people who are the shit think you're the shit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of how I feel. Like even though I made it, I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with saying that. And then sort of going on to segue into what Forrest was saying about like the whole ranking, what I always try and do is whenever I'm teaching a class, I don't ever say all-star dancers. I say more experienced.
Right.
Sure.
So I just try and like put it into our heads that it's not, you don't strive for the level, you strive for more experience. You strive for that versus title.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to talk about it. Like for me, definitely, I don't want somebody to be. This maybe moves us into a whole aside about like what does the All-Star division look like these days, and should people want to try to quote unquote make it to champions or not?
I have my opinions.
So like that's sort of a separate question, I guess. But for me, like I don't necessarily ever want somebody to refer to me as like an all-star dancer. I want somebody to refer to me as somebody who's fun to dance with, or like somebody they like dancing with. Like that for me is like a far more significant compliment than like he's achieved this label and therefore he is a good dancer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of what you're talking about here, Chris, where you're saying that ultimately what spoke to you was just the respect of your peers, and that's what kind of was that triggering moment for being like, yeah, I've made it, I'm established. So did you have sort of a thought there, Andrew? I think that you were thinking about wandering into another question.
There's no good segue for it.
Great.
It is not important. It was talking about the ranking system and where people fit. It's kind of what we're going on, but it was a little aside that I don't think matters right now.
Well, Jacqueline just asked us to talk about that, but I don't know which that she was referring to.
Yeah, it might be what Joel is doing, which is renaming all of the ranks to Pikachu, Totoro, Sailor Scout, Naruto, Goku, Super Saiyan. However, Jason has a caveat that Naruto should not be above Sailor Scout, and then Joel agrees.
So you know how we do that thing sometimes, Andrew, where like you're about to wander down a dark corridor, and I like pull you back from the brink of it? Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
This is not the same. This is not the same as this is a wonderful, well-lit corridor, perhaps with auras and kamehamehas.
Oh, God.
Pikachus. Incidentally, this is my favorite. Come on, hey girl, are you a Pokemon? Because I'd like to take a Pikachu. West Coast swing.
All right, Jacqueline, if you want to let us know what specifically you were thinking about, we can totally talk about something. I just want to kind of quickly go through and look at some of the comments, as long as we're along the lines of that.
Andrew
Sonata was.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he was showing the love to Chris about actually kind of crawling up the ranks, which I do think is something to.
Ooh, yeah. I actually have something on that.
Do it. Do the thing.
So I was recently undisclosed location, and I was talking to certain people, and there was an all-star dancer that had been dancing West Coast for 2 years.
Yeah.
Great.
An all-star level dancer.
Yeah.
I'm like, it took me a year to get out of novice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yep.
It took me a year to get out of novice. It took me another year to get out of intermediate. Then it took me a year and a half to get out of advanced, and then almost 2 years to get out of all-star.
Mm-hmm.
I burned through the ranks. How is that possible that it would take you that long? You are.
Here's the thing: is I forced myself to win each division.
Okay, so you stayed until you won.
Cool.
Yes. So because what I had been told by the more experienced people is that back in the day, that's how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you had to win the division, then you moved up. When I was moving up, it was a suggestion. They suggest that you win before you move up.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a requirement anymore. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it how they used to do it. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I did it. And I stayed in advanced, I think, for like one comp too many. So I have like an absurd amount of advanced points over the cap that it was.
But do you have Brad Whelan absurd numbers of advanced points? Because that sucker has like 110 advanced points because he just sandbagged that division for like 3 years.
Hey, if you're making $20 a pop, you might as well just stick around. So.
Just keep it rolling. Keep that prize money rolling.
Oh, man. Okay. So in Europe, so people want you to talk about the state of All-Star. Then I think that's a good segue from talking about how you got into it. Like, do you think it's too easy
to
get into the division to progress?
I do think so. Well, not necessarily too easy, but I think it's like people are always looking at the destination versus like learning experience throughout all.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they're just like rushing to get the point hungry, and like there's people that like do the whole they win at some rinky-dink event that maybe only has 10 people, and they go straight to finals and they win, they get 5 points.
I actually had a coach that would tell me to do that for jazz stuff. Like you go, and that's also honestly that's a thing you do in like minor league sports is you go against like a Division II team and kick their ass, build your confidence, and in boxing too, it's the same thing.
Boxing,
yeah,
totally. I was just about to say that. Yeah. I mean, people are into padding their record, and I think that what sort of just setting that aside, because there are people who do that, but like for me, it's kind of a shrug in the general direction of those people. Like, you're always going to have people who kind of try to exploit the system a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really more about that understanding that like I could have novice next to my name, or I could have champion next to my name, and your dancing's the same.
Yeah.
Like your division does not change how you dance. How you dance changes how you dance. And so, like, if there were a little bit more of a lead into the focus of, like, I just want to get better, and then a byproduct of getting better will be advancing in my level.
Yeah.
But a better byproduct of getting better will be that people want to dance with me more, and I'll be a better dancer because I like dancing. Like, that's a better byproduct.
But then you're talking about, like, the difference of status versus the activity itself.
Totally, yeah. And we've talked about this a lot. Like, it's sort of ultimately about what you're motivated by. And do you search for that more external motivation, or do you really feel internally motivated to achieve some kind of a goal? Because if you're externally motivated, once the external motivations run out, and they almost, for 99.9% of the people who do this dance, they will run out. Like, you won't make it to champs, or you won't win classic, or you won't win Rising Star, or whatever. Like, you're going to run out of motivation at a certain point. And that's where you see kind of the all-star elephant graveyard happen, where
oh my God.
Everyone just kind of goes there to die, No, that's what I call it. I call it it is the elephant graveyard. That is where good dancers go to die.
Chris, Forrest, and I, for one of the shows, we're supposed to, like, essentially build the perfect convention according to our specs. I think that if we have a division, it has to be called Elephant Graveyard.
So is that the professional division?
Oh, yeah.
Or is that the...
I would totally dance in that and go, like, every sugar push. It was just, every time. I would just do that.
I just want a gif of that. Can somebody gif that for us?
Yeah.
Just that picture of Chris with the elephant. That was great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I guess my question would be, what is your motivation now? And this is for both of you.
That's a good question. Yeah, what are you motivated by, Chris? Like, what pushes you?
Honestly, like, other people. That's it. Like, really. Like, yeah, I know
Great.
it's
This
like
has been West Coast Live.
Super simple answer, but it, like, there's a lot of people that don't look for inspiration down.
Yeah.
They look for inspiration always up. And, like, it is a little bit more of a rarity because, usually the lower levels don't have as much experience, or they're not as in tune with their bodies. But there are, like, snippets of, like, man, that was dope. I'm totally stealing that.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so, like, there was this one kid in, I think it was an intermediate, and I was judging, and I was just like, like, I was just, like, it was almost like, wow, like, you, like, keep going with this. You're gonna be something. And it was just like little choices that he was making that I was like, that was cool. And I can't remember, someone one of his friends overheard and was like, and went and told him that I was like, this guy is the shit, or is going to be something. And then it took me a hot second. So if he's watching this,
who is this?
So, like,
we can keep it on the stuff.
No.
Okay.
This isn't like
Andrew's all about transparency.
I am. Come on, this is not one of those like, well, he took a shit on the middle of the dance floor, like a literal dookie.
No, to be honest, I'm the worst person with names, so I don't remember his name, but I know faces. Okay.
Cool.
So I know his face. So, like, I could pick him out in a crowd.
Awesome.
But, like, he went and he was like, dude, like, thank you so much, in the as he was walking out of an elevator, and I was like, you're welcome. And then as soon as the elevator door shut, I was like, oh, it was him. So I had a very much deer in headlight moment. But I do remember you. So if you are watching, I remember that I gave you that compliment, and then you thanked me for giving you that. But anyways, yeah. So it's like I look for that little ADD segue. look for inspiration sort of everywhere, and I try and um, look at like the little details of things. Like maybe the person has terrible technique, in my opinion, like they have terrible technique, but their footwork on this too was like mind blowing.
Super cool. Yeah.
Super cool. Or that moment choice was super cool. I'm going to be like, that was awesome. I'm going to try something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and something that I always do is I always look for people with similar body styles to me.
Oh yeah.
So like when I was growing up, and like in this community, I was always looking at Sean because he's tall, lanky, just like me. You know, and I was looking at how he still does. He utilizes his legs so well.
Yeah.
Because you don't really see that he is that tall.
I was just talking with somebody about this last night because Sean and Court taught at the warehouse the other night, and I took their workshop, and it was great.
That's so cool.
And I was watching him dance that night, and it really is like very stealthy, just when he's social dancing, like how he holds his body. Because Sean is, I don't know actually how tall he is, 6'2" or something like that, with a 7-foot freaking wingspan. I don't know what the guy's wingspan is, but his arms are like, he's got the Captain Plastic arms or whatever it is.
Very sexy Slenderman.
Yeah, and like he just kind of like coils his body in on itself, but in a way where it doesn't look like it's compressed, but it
doesn't
is.
look like praying
And then
mantis.
just like the limbs will just like expand out from the center point like very naturally, and suddenly he'll have like this great body position. It's like very sneaky, and I'm going to try to steal it.
I have
because
a gift
need
to send you
help.
later. It's very specific.
Perfect.
Actually, you know the
Beautiful.
video
I'm
game
terrified.
Arms? Somebody needs to
Yes.
make a meme of Sean McKeever of the video game Arms. I think he needs to be a character in it.
Please
saying.
do.
Chris is on board.
Yes.
So okay, so when you were coming up, you were watching people who kind of like fit that body type mold, and I'm definitely right there with you. Like I watch you a lot, and I watch Hugo and Sean a lot, just like the kind of long, lanky guys who have figured out how to not look like long, lanky guys. So
Who do I have? Like that's if all you guys are lanky and beautiful, and I'm like my average ass is over here, just whatever. That's fine.
I don't know, like that's.
Well, I mean, I still like, even though Benji and I are a little bit different as far as body type, like
I watch Benji all the time. Yeah.
I watch Benji a lot. So like, there's still inspiration, like even with like people that aren't my body type, I still look at them and to see like maybe like how their hips rotate on something, or like how they move into power moves or something like that, you know, or like, I don't know, like anything under the sun. I sort of look and see what they do well. Like, what do they do well, and how can I make it to where I can do that too?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. To ask kind of like, I'm our radio professional here. Andrew's like the hype man, but so I'm here for the transitions. That's basically my entire job. No, I'm teasing. But so is there like something that you're watching, because you were talking about like watching somebody and really enjoying the thing that they were doing. Is there something that you're watching now, say, and I think that most of the people who are watching this that I'm aware of are kind of more intermediate advanced all-star dancers. That's kind of happening.
Stephen White, Stephen White,
and
for sure.
yeah, like Stephen White, a solid intermediate. You know, maybe one day
He's gonna,
he'll put two
he's
and two
gonna be
together.
something.
He's got a
one
lot
day.
of talent, and he'll get there one
It's
day.
a real rising star, that one right there.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see him in the elephant graveyard.
Oh my god.
I love you, Steven. Is there something that you're watching
Much
right
love,
now
man.
with people are doing that you wish that they were doing more of, or that you wish that they were doing
Oh,
less
gosh.
of? Like, and I know that giving blanket statements is tough, but
I'll go with a specific division, because I think an all-star division is like everyone wants to
everyone's favorite division to bag on. Yeah.
like everyone wants to like throw their opinion on it, and I figured I'll throw my 2 cents in there as well.
Sure, why not?
But it's like for all-star, the main thing that I'm seeing is either it is no one's conversing, so it's like plain, and then they both try and do something at the same time, and then they both come on, and then they both try and do the same thing at the same time. So there's something like that would happen. There's also things like when there's the audience like whores. That's what I call them. Sorry, guys, but
No, it's cool. I am one. So
where they
whatever.
just look at they just look at the audience and they don't even like all of the passes are just open like this, and they're just having a follower pass by. But I think the thing that I would love to see more is conversation.
Yeah.
Just like dancing with the person. Like there are moments to go to the audience. Like, but the thing is, it's like anything. If you do too much of it, it's gonna be boring.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just internalize the entire dance and not have maybe even just one moment to the audience, everyone's gonna be like, oh, it's just very closed in, and they might not relate to it.
Yeah.
But so it's just kind of like finding that balance. But I think right now, if they turned everything in towards each other and have it to where, like, I feel like right now followers are like having to do stuff, like out of the book. They are having to do that because leaders are very pattern happy, and they're very much like, I have to set up the phrase.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question about that, because
Yes.
So Swing was this last weekend. It was a super fun event. I had a great time. And I don't like just say that to say that. I say that because it's like actually one of the like hidden gem events where everyone just has an amazing time, and it's way better than it needs to be. And I drew Taylor Banfield in the All-Star Finals. Yeah, and and I've been working on a lot of like movement stuff in my body and my dancing recently, and it's really gotten into my social dancing, and it's really gotten into my prelims. And then I went out there for my spotlight, and it was just all gone. I watched the video back, and I was
footage.
like, this rotated like one time during the entire damn dance. Because to your point, I was thinking about all this other stuff. I was thinking about getting from point A to point B on the floor, and I was thinking about, oh, I want to like phrase this way to the song, so we hit that one point. Or I was thinking about, I'm a little bit nervous because there are 400 people watching me right now, or whatever it might be, right? So like that, what you're speaking to about like just kind of like sitting back and having that conversation and allowing yourself the opportunity to like maybe not having a performative dance, I think is just a very useful point in general.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like you want to find that the same thing. Like I'm all about the whole balance thing, like the balancing. Like I want to have it to where like, say if I know that I'm like I've hit the phrase, like, or if I've hit the music how I wanted to maybe 2 or 3 times in a row, then I'm like, oh, maybe I should set something up for my follow to do something.
Yeah.
Because I'm being a hog. So I try my best to balance things out, and I think right now, like I said, in that division is it's sort of a battle right now versus like one person sort of just being like, okay, you do this thing, and then I'll jump in after you're done, or I'll jump in midpoint, and then we'll create something really awesome together. So I think it's definitely a skill to be had, but like if you really work at it in that division, it's going to better your chances to get into champions.
Yeah. See, I find that for me, like I can't set things up. Like you probably, I mean, it's obvious that you think quicker than I do, especially on the dance floor. But like, so going back to like inspiration and that sort of things, I wait for my follow to do anything, and then I try my very best to accent what they're doing, or like just go with it. You know what I mean? Like I have 5 moves probably total of like the flashy crap that I can do, and they're not that great. So it's for me, like I know that if I get
so self-harming here, Andrew.
No, I don't think that's self-harming at all. I don't have a huge vocabulary, and I don't really feel comfortable using it with a lot of people because I've been injured many times. So I envy you greatly that you're able to like set up those sort of things and then recognize like, okay, and now it needs to be this sort of situation. You're able to drastically change according to the situation, whereas I'm just like, I hope she does something.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit in there, but
oh, good.
But anyways, no. So the thing is like I'm actually working on that. I'm working on setting up right now because I wasn't. Like I recently took a private, and for me, not like I stole a private from someone else. But it was. I took one for my own dancing. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do? Because I feel like I'm kind of nah,
Right.
I'm stuck. And they're like, okay, all right, so you need to set up your partner more. And I was always very much like more like you. Like I was like, all right, I'll wait for them to do something and sort of see what happens. And then that's when I found that my placements were so varied.
Yeah.
Because I would get that to that point where I was like, oh, if the follower's killer, then I can jump in and I can really utilize that. That's something I'm super comfortable with. But then when I say maybe have a follow that's a little bit more tame or like chill, and is, then I have to, I can't just do nothing, so I've been working on that, and that's something that is really hard. It's really, really hard because I feel like I'm just telling you what to do, but you aren't really
doing much,
so I have to.
Yeah.
But, I think of it now as like, okay, I sort of start off the dance, seeing where things are going, seeing how they're feeling it out within like maybe the first two patterns or whatever. And then I go into like, okay, let me set it up for something, or I'll set something up. Maybe that'll inspire my follower to do something.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't, then I'll go to the other plan, and then, so on and so forth. Sort of just analyze it from there.
Sweet.
That's a great way to think about that, I think. Katie asked a question in the chat that is probably a good time to get to this, where she was wondering if there's a way that followers can help their leaders do that better. Is there a way that, like, when you do you feel something from your, maybe another way to ask this question, when you're dancing with champs and you're dancing with someone that you is going to make your life easy, a Sarah, a Jen, whoever, is there something that you feel from them that helps you be more creative in that way, or helps you facilitate that kind of that process of conversation?
Angles.
Yeah.
Okay, so like more activity in the body, setting
That's
up
awesome.
rotation.
Like something that Sarah does really well is like on just an inside rotation. Like hang on, let me see if I can back up and do this. But like she would just angle her body like this.
It's very Sarah. Yeah.
It's very, and she would rotate like that, and I'll be like, oh, maybe I could do something.
Yeah.
Off of that, like either I could have her pass by and then I do a neck wrap doing the same angle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like something, like I can respond, or I can then take that angle and make something happen. So, so she was like, she also followed up with, can a follower help facilitate a conversation without just doing stuff?
Yeah.
So that's the stuff to be doing, as I would say, is like angles, and also like posting.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, if a follower
Posting
posts,
is super underrated.
like, it makes me be like, what do I do?
Yeah, I'm paying attention now. Yeah, if you post yourself out, like, now I'm paying attention because I'm like, okay, she wants a thing. Yeah, totally.
And the thing is like, you don't really want to post like mid pass or something.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be like, all right, we're doing left step. What?
All right. Now
Like, now we're not. It's more of like, have it to where you ground yourself. And it's, I usually would maybe do like anchor wise, or like maybe after a pass on 4, you just stop. And then I'm like, oh, and maybe turn your back to me or something. Then I know something's different. And then I'll like go off, maybe do something different that I wasn't planning on doing. Mm-hmm. So I'd say like posting and angles would be maybe the best course of action.
Yeah, I think that what you're kind of pointing to here is like interjecting ideas without taking the lead away. If that kind of makes sense, because like if you lead just the example you were talking about with Sarah, some kind of like rotational figure, and the follower adds additional rotation in a direction, I'm going to want to take that rotation and do something with it. But if your lead happens to just like not do that, or they miss it or whatever, you can just go back to neutral and dance the dance. Like, you know, it doesn't take options away. It only puts more options on the table. And I think that's a great way to do it.
And the thing is, too, is like it's a win-win, because no matter what, you're going to look dope while doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Even if it doesn't turn into like a next cool pattern, you've added some flair, you've added a cool emotion. Why not?
Yeah.
But
that's great.
There's where it gets all hung up for me, is because, maybe I'm spoiled these days, but I don't see enough. I see more leads do this than follows, but like leads are starting to like be like get wiggly and like style and dance, like actually dance, as opposed to like this is my next pattern, this is my next pattern, and I don't see it as much in the follows, probably because they have to worry about so much more. And I wish we had a follow on today who could actually talk about that, but I don't really have a segue for it other than, in your opinion, what do you see right now? Is there enough dancing? Is it more concern of like, here is my next move? Because I know that you actually go and you train in solo and you can move your body well and, you understand those sort of things. But when I watch the Champions Division, even there, it's a lot of like, here's my dopest pattern that I have. Here's another great pattern. And here's another pattern. And it's all done super well. But the body movement's sort of lacking for me. Where are you with that? What do you think about that in All-Star, in Champs, and whatever?
In general, I think that like you want to have that in your toolbox. So as far as like what I'm seeing, I am seeing more constant body movement.
Okay.
I'm not seeing as many like quick switches of direction, especially with the upper body. Like it's more feet oriented where like you see a quick motion or a quick like pattern to hit a moment versus utilizing your body to maybe accentuate or maybe, assist with that turn to a hit or like assist with the footwork.
Right.
So I'm seeing it more like constant. So like it's really nice body flight.
Right.
Like how they're moving is really nice, but it's not necessarily that like solo accentuating the music, like isolating rib cage, shoulders, head, all that good stuff.
Right. What do you like in that regard?
I'm a mixture, man. Like one of the things that I also got from the private that I took was switching up, as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
Like switching up my toolbox, so I'm not just dancing footwork the entire song.
Yeah.
Or I'm not just dancing, patterns the entire song. I'm trying to make it to where I do a lot of different things, instead of just that one thing or like just body isolations. So would I like to see more of it? Absolutely. Would I want it to take away from the follow or the partnering aspects? I think that's the fine line. I think that's probably why people usually veer away from it, is because internal movement is it is individual, right? But a lot of people don't realize that it can also frame what's going on. It can frame sort of what's happening. Like you can have it's like say like a follower's in a one-footed spin, right? Yeah, my follow is super good right now. Anyways, but so like
best
say
follower of your life.
Yeah, so like say I'm doing something like that, and then there's like a ding ding or like a hit in the song, and I still want her to spin. Like I can have it to where like I pop my chest and not have it affect anything in my hand.
Sure.
Or say she even does like my follower even does stop, boom, and then I hit that ding when she stops. It's like either way, it's another win-win situation.
Yeah.
But it can add to it. So like you have it to where she's doing something amazing and you're just standing there, and then you add something to the table that makes it a partnered thing. It's not just her doing a 1 foot anymore. It's you guys doing something while she's doing a 1 foot.
Yeah.
So it looks more like a complete package versus like, oh, she's spinning now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, awesome. And I think we got about like 10, 15 more minutes.
We got about 10 minutes
something
left.
Like that. Yeah, 10 minutes left. And we sort of mentioned that we were going to talk about judging a little bit, and we ended up getting like hung up on other stuff, which is great.
It all kind
problem to have.
of, we've come and gone on the judging subject, but I don't know. So it all ends up being about judging in some way. So, Chris, let's talk about judging.
Yes.
Yeah.
So judging as far as like what aspect? What do we
yeah.
like?
So I think that a place to start is because so you've offered like where the things that you would like to see more of, or the things that you would like to see less of. Do you think that there's something that's happening right now in the judging that's encouraging good habits or bad habits enough? And if so, what would you like to see people focus on more or less?
So right now, this is more, I would say definitely the upper levels. So like the more all-star, the more champ division, which usually whatever gets rewarded there sort of influences.
It trickles down.
It trickles. But at certain places, not all, but at certain places, they reward like the person that doesn't die. So like basically they like do this flip trick and you look like they're gonna absolutely fall flat on their face. You know it's a mistake, but because they survived, they end up top 5. Sometimes even winning. And I'm like,
I can think of 3 dances right off the top of my head right now.
So it's like
totally.
It comes like it's like, oh my gosh, like yeah, it was cool, but it was just a train wreck.
Yeah.
And I think that if we focus in a little bit more on like dancing versus like the show aspect, now here's the little asterisk thing, is there are places to have a wild and crazy show. There are places. But I feel like right now it's sort of getting into where we're just having it where it's just all show, or they expect some crazy thing to happen in these divisions versus having it be like, oh, they danced.
Yeah. Well, and the skill of performing is different than going out and having a solid gold social dance, man. And nobody really tries to marry the two at any given time. I like to quote Andrew Sonata on this because I like how he thinks about his dancing, but he has 2 different forms essentially. Is like, and he's here so he can correct me on this, but he has his social dance self. He'll try more. He'll do different things than he would when he's doing his competition self. And I personally don't have that because every time I'm social dancing, I want to perform in one way or another, whether it's with my partner for nobody or if people are watching and I'm like, oh, let's do this. This will be great. I'm always working on my performance as an integral piece of my social dancing even. Like, do you have a second part? Or are you just always on as you?
The only thing that changes is I know where my audience is.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
As far as when I am dancing with you socially versus like in a spotlight format, what I do, I try and have it be the exact same thing. Yeah. Of course, social dancing, it's a lot more compact. I can't travel or maybe do as big of a movement, maybe because space, constraints.
Right.
But I still try and have the same dance that I would do in a spotlight if we were dancing in a spotlight. But the only difference is I'm not worried about looking out to the audience.
Sure.
Right.
That's it. So like I'm not worried about like dipping and having it to where my back's to the audience. I'm like, oh no. And then I like turn around.
Yeah.
So for you, they're pretty integrated, basically.
Yeah, because I don't ever want to think of having it to where like, oh, my social dancing is where I am going to be all creative and like take chances, and then in my spotlight, all right, everything is going to be calculated, and I'm not going to go beyond my comfort of what I know I can do.
Right.
I always want to try and have it be like, all right, let's see where this goes. That's sort of kind of it's not a very consistent method, I will have to say. As far as placing well or things like that,
it seems to be working for you.
I've just been getting really, really lucky as far as my choice making. Let's just say that. But it's like that's what I try and do is I try and make it to where I don't hold back. I just think of like whatever pops into my head, I'm just gonna do it, and yeah.
I mean, sometimes you hit it out of the park, and sometimes you land on your face. But I think it's great to have that kind of a naturalistic style, and something to point to is that, like, not to get on my soapbox for 1 second here, but like All Stars is the learning division.
Yeah,
and I think it's really, really important for us all to like chill the F out for a second here about All Stars and just actually view it as what it is, which is it's an amateur division mostly. that's intended to prep people if they want to be professionals.
Yeah.
That's what it's there for. It's literally there for you to get like the crap out of your system, and to have like the bad practice runs of your future amazing champion spotlight dances,
Well, yeah,
So
like that's why it's the
fail
division
sometimes.
of spotlight. That's the way
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why it's spotlighted that way. It's
Yeah.
literally practice. So I just wish that people kind of were a little bit more like shrug when you have the all-stars who do fall in their face periodically. Because like I would rather they fall in their face then and get it out of their system than fall in their face when they're doing it in champions.
Yeah.
So
Well, and there's always a big to-do when something bad goes on in All-Star. Like, doesn't matter who did this or whatever, but a few years back at a convention, I remember there was a pro who just fucking livid that I think it was my fault, actually. I think it was that it was when I fell, like
oh, okay.
when a Clonch brought me down, and which was a total just like miscommunication or whatever, and like it. But then afterward, and it was that division was a lot of like missteps and weirdness as a whole. But after that, I had semi-pros come up to me and then tell me like, you are supposed to do better. You're an all-star. I was like, I don't know you, but thank you for the advice. And then there was rumor rolling around that 2 or 3 of the higher end champs were really pissed and like, oh, all-star is such a trash division because blah, which could have been total rumor, but it's still the fact that that was kind of in the ether. It just sort of surprised me because most of the people, like you say, in that division are not making a living wage off of it. They're not traveling the world teaching necessarily.
Sure.
So I love the way that you put that it is a learning division. That's a much more positive way of looking at it than I think is usually gleaned. Yeah. Chris, what do you look for, actually? I mean, to ask a simple question, what do you look for when you're judging?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So I know that we're getting close, but I can go through every division really quick.
Hey, I like it.
All right, so
We got nowhere to be as far as I'm.
Yeah. Well, me too. So, anyways, well, as far as novice is concerned, like the basics, and like it's just like timing, technique, teamwork, that whole biz. Just sort of knowing that you know the dance and you're doing it well. That's the what I ask for. Now, my whole philosophy is if you can show me more, show me more. Because if you can, like I don't think of like, oh, this judge is only looking for timing, technique, teamwork, I'm only going to do that. You know what I mean? Like if you have it to where you have more in you, other than those things, show me. The biggest thing is don't mess up those other things. So don't mess up your technique, don't mess up your timing, don't mess up your teamwork. If you can show me more. Now, so that's my whole thing on novice. And also too is for any followers or leaders out there that are wondering what do you do when the other half of you is off time, don't worry. Most of us know who it is by looking at it.
Yeah.
So just throwing that out there, most of us know. So an intermediate, I look for just elevated. So I'm looking for a little bit more conversation between the two of you. I'm not looking for crazy patterns, but I'm looking for elevated basics, and things of that sort. A little bit more partnership dealio. Then in advanced, I'm looking definitely for like the introductory of phrasing, hopefully.
Right.
Phrasing, giving yourself moments, giving the follower moments. Now it's just, it's going to be the same thing more or less for All-Star, but it's just more frequency. So as far as an advanced, you can have like 30 seconds of basics and grooving out and then have a moment. Whereas like in an All-Star division, I want to see you like kind of go in and out seamlessly pretty quickly. Not like every other pattern, but it has this sort of thing versus like we're cruising along, here's our moment, and then we're cruising along. That's sort of what I would want to see in an advanced, and then this is what I would want to see in an all-star.
Right.
And then as for like a spotlight, so a spotlight usually for any division, I want you to somewhat know where the front is. So we've all like we've all been there. Like
We've all lived that life.
Like I've lived that life where like there was one time where I dipped somebody and my back was to the audience.
Yeah.
So I literally just shuffled her around and then brought her up in front. So it was like that's a save, but it's just it's kind of like just at least knowing where that front is and having it to where this is something that usually leaders end up doing is they cover their follow. Even on like side-by-side walks, like the lead's just in front, and usually we're taller, so like you can't even see the follow.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like awareness of what they can see in comparison to what you are doing. That would be the all-star division for me.
That'd be a great workshop, actually, is competitive placement. Like literally, where do you place yourself when you're dancing?
Oh, I wish we did more contest practice in general. Honestly,
100%.
like as a workshop format, just like if you're a pro and you happen to be watching this, you know, and you're trying to figure out what your next level 4 leveled workshop thing is going to be, if you just made it like actually a contest workshop where it's like, here's how to do a spotlight well. Like I would so be there. I would be there at 9 a.m. on a Sunday. I would be there.
Speaking of
show
which,
up.
There's something very special potentially coming to Portland, Oregon.
What's that, Andrew?
Just be ready for it. I can't talk about it right now. It's hush hush.
Okay.
But it's gonna be very good. It's gonna be so good. Okay.
We're ending West Coast Live to begin an ASMR show.
No. No.
Oh man.
Okay, so the last thing, we are kind of over time, but I really would love to know if there's like something you want to impart to the audience, like to whether they're like fans of yours.
To leave us with.
Well, yeah, hey, there's a reason that's a classic tactic in every interview. Knock it off. So, if there is something that you want to give to competitors or judges, or regardless of level, or maybe a specific level, it doesn't really matter. Just, is there a thing that you want people to know, something that's so important to you?
Okay. So I would say something that has stood the test of time as far as routine, age, experience, level is never compare yourself to others, only compare yourself to yourself. That's it. As far as your competition life, even though you're competing against people, I do a quick story. I swear, it's quick. So it was when I was doing the whole like transitioning champions thing. I was like, I am so freaking out because I made an actual champion. Like it was champion final. And I was like, I'm competing against you guys. And then Benji was like, you're competing with us, not against us.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I was like, oh, all right. So it's just like, think of always being the better you versus I have to get first. I have to beat this person in order to get what I want, which is first.
Yeah.
If you be the best you, that's your best chance of getting that first that you want.
Yeah.
So I would say that's my underlying dealio to give to all of the peeps.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I agree. And with that, we unfortunately have to say goodbye. Again, thank you very much, Chris, for being here. You're incredible, man. If you ever want to be
awesome
back
to
on the
have
show, if you ever want to come back, please let us know.
Absolutely. I'll say it right now. I will be back whenever you want me.
Awesome. And as always, Forrest Hansen is my co-host. My name is Andrew Slack. Thank you again to Black Rose Fitness Society for sponsoring us. What I said before is very true. If you live in the Portland, the Oregon area, something very, very amazing might just be coming your way very soon. You will hear from me locally. But for the rest of you, thank you so much. Go have the best day that you've ever had, and we will see you again on West Coast Live. Bye, people.
Thank you, guys.
Deuces.